For those who hear, let them hear. For those who see, let them see. May the Christ within illumine the world, and know that God is one with thee.
That truth principle, justice, and deception. It is always our pleasure to greet you, and throughout the length and breadth of your land, the harvest is becoming great, and the need of laborers in the field of harvest becomes so very necessary. Time is rapidly approaching where there shall be no more questions asked than orthodox theology can answer. In the very early 16th century, a prediction was made. Toward the close of the 20th century, all religious systems would have become numbered in a heap of discard, and men of earth, through desire to know truth, would make a demand. That demand is very close at hand. It is needless for me to state or to remind you that not only in the field of religious systems, but among the men who have been entrusted with the affairs of nations, are those not living true to their trust. There is no great mystery to that, for religious systems have caused man of earth to become weak in his understanding of God, weak to the great task where he has discarded belief in God. For that reason, spiritually and politically, the nations stand in jeopardy. There is a solution to the problem, and we seek mundane collaborators through whom we may pass the message of spiritual emancipation. Mind you, we make no demand ever, and we do not ask for those who represent us to resort to proselyting. You will find that yoke shall be easy, and the burden shall be light. Mortal man who seeks to deceive his neighbor and all mankind of earth become neighbor with neighbor. Though there be myriad in physical numbers, there is but one presence, the presence of the ever-living God. Therefore, regardless of how one man attempts to deceive another, he but deceives himself. It is unfortunate that man has become godless to the degree that he is ready to sell 13 ounces for £1. But whom does he deceive? Judas deceived and, as the story is related, released his physical body from his soul. It has ever been thus, and so shall it continue to be, until man shall understand that salvation is now. Now is the day of salvation. It cannot be bought with 30 pieces of silver. You will remember the story of the betrayal. Judas held 30 pieces of silver in a leathern bag, and he held it in his right hand. 30 pieces of silver. 3. Symbolizing his triune inheritance with the great oversoul of life. And the knot of the 30, the all-inclusiveness of which he was spiritually. And the leathern bag concealed with 30 pieces of silver. And thus man, within the treachery of his thinking, conceals his birthright. Many Judas are many a Judas, many a Thomas, many a Peter. Throughout the length and breadth of your land, you will find many of such character. Listen, dear hearts. The day of atonement is now. Now is a time for man of earth to make his repentance. Now is a time for man of earth to meet his Maker. Not in the sweet by and by, for there shall be no sweetness in the by and by, if man carries the bitterness of gall with him into the by and by. For he shall find himself as he has so conducted his physical journey. Let the waters of Mara be sweetened now, for there is no greater way in which for man to accomplish this than through the law of justice. Each teacher in their time has taught the lesson of justice. There is but one way, and that is for man to be fair, upright with his fellow man. Dear hearts, do not worry because of the injustice dealt to you. Regardless of how unfair your fellow man has been with you, you are now looking at life, not through a glass darkly, but you are standing out in the open field. You have become monarch of all your survey. Would you ask me, what shall I do with the injustice of the past? My answer to you is this: cut it loose and let it go, for it shall find the womb from which it had its birth. You shall not have to direct its way. It shall find its own way. For remember, may I repeat a few words I left with you some time ago? Perhaps they will become sweeter music upon your ears than when I first brought them to you. Listen, there is part of the sun in the apple, and there is part of the moon in the rose. God truly has put his heaven into everything that expresses life, and the individual whom society brands the lowest of the low is a part of God. His mortal cunning, his mortal treachery may have obscured his vision of God, but he is God's child. And regardless how cruel his conduct may have been, there is only one picture to behold, and that is the innate dwelling Christ of God. It shall spell freedom to you. It shall spell freedom for you. Hold no man of earth in contempt. Ever be free to say, you are God's child. And in your prayerful meditation, remember those who are less fortunate than yourself. Let your prayer of peace and love be universal. You are responsible to yourself. You are a child of the living God. Be their karma from age upon age. Let not karmic debt trouble you when you have learned to live in peace and freedom with your God. Man is responsible to himself and to himself alone. This I speak to you in truth. Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners, said the apostle of ancient age. Be not deceived. Look not to any man-made ritual to absolve whatever misdemeanor has crossed your thinking. Such ritual, such does not exist. And I do not say this in any form of malice or ridicule. Do not be deceived. Learn, dear hearts, to speak with a smile in your voice, and by no means ever seek to bind your fellow man. With the same freedom that you would enjoy, render unto your fellow man that same freedom. In so living, there can be no accumulated debt or karma in that which man has learned to call the future. If your fellow man would stand within your gate with his hands and feet seemingly tied and shackled, let your question be this: what would I do under a similar circumstance? Has your path ever been rough? Have you ever come to a place along life's path where your hands and your feet have been manacled? Then you experience release. Stop, contemplate your release, and in prayerful meditation, say to your brother, I cut you loose and free you in the freedom, the allness, the oneness of the living God, of whom we are both a part thereof. This is salvation. This is being born again. Then you have a perfect right to say, I am a born again Christian in God. Full and complete surrender in heart, dear one, shall never cause man to speak in terms of enmity. Your name upon a scroll or roll, whatever it may be placed, is of no avail unless in spirit and in truth your name has been inscribed upon the inner scroll, that scroll which is never scrutinized by physical eyes. Your name so placed shall be recognized in length and breadth of the universe. Then you can place your name to whatever man-made scroll may appear without fear of contradiction. First, within. The time is at hand, dear hearts, and it shall come to pass before your physical bodies have fallen away from your spirit and soul. It is rapidly approaching when the prediction made in the early 16th century shall be written across the length and breadth of the land. Churchianity shall have ceased to be, and Christianity shall come into full fruition. Man can no longer deceive man, for the Christian age is at hand. Each tyrant in their time, each dictator, as you have learned to call them, each individual seeking individual supremacy, has but goaded man on to seek, to delve, to fathom, to uncover, until soul restlessness is becoming a dynamic urge, as it were. And man is asking, why is this? Why has 2,000 years and more of Christianity failed? You are coming into possession of the answer. And our council, unseen to human eyes, the members of which are myriad in numbers, are seeking mundane collaborators. For at long last, a spiritual science must prevail, and as the test tube in the laboratories reveals, that which man of science seeks to find, so in your laboratory of thinking, you shall bring forth the perfect specimen in your spiritual test tube. Please. A hymn writer wrote, work for the night is coming. I say to you, work for the day is becoming brighter. Man loses his way in darkness, but he finds his path in brightness of the great white light, a cosmic principle. Let your labors be not in vain. Bless you, bless you, bless you. Good night.